Hey guys, it's Dawn and Lasair here, and today I want to delve more into the feeding part. I touched about this on the husbandry videos I did yesterday, and I decided to dive deeper into this because it is that important. There's been so many times that people ask me, why is he so healthy? What do you feed him? How do you teach him? How do you train him? How do you have such a good relationship with him? And our immediate thought is the training. But I think if you dive even deeper, it's probably the feeding, because feeding is a big deal. If you think about it, what is the most important thing to the horse? It's going to be all your basic survival stuff, safety and shelter and their herd and reproduction and food. Food is essential and crucial, and they spend more of their time eating than anything else. So, one of the big questions is, how important is this? You just throw some hay into a feeder like this. This is the one that I originally started off with, along with everyone else. Now it's just storage. But, it's like, how important is it? Well, think about it this way. In a week, how many hours in a week is your horse eating? How many hours should a horse be eating in a week? And how many hours in a week are you riding? You'll find that them eating greatly outweighs you riding. So a lot of people will spend a ton of money on saddle or a horse blanket, or many horse blankets, right? And they won't blink on that. But then the cost of a Porta-Grazer is out of reach, when actually it should be the other way around, because do they even care about their blanket? A lot of horses don't even care about blankets. Do the horses, what about riding? Well, how often are you actually riding? Versus in comparison to how much time and how much importance the horse puts into eating. Okay, so I will say eating is the most important thing to the typical horse that has everything else, like shelter and stuff. That's all for granted. But all right, so why is eating so important? Food is important because it is the first step to the overall health of the horse. Okay, from the hooves to their coat to everything. Everything starts with eating. Without those first building blocks, you got nothing. And without good gut health, you get colic and death. You get behavioral and training issues. And also you are not able to utilize the food that goes in. So you can dump a whole bunch of food and supplements in there, but if you don't have the proper gut flora to process those foods and break it down into the building blocks that the body needs to build with, then you got nothing. If you don't have the exercise needed, then you got nothing, despite pouring everything else in there. Right now this is a very cloudy day. It's muggy. The sun's not even out, and he's in the shade, and look at the shine he has on him, and he's filthy. He actually is really dirty. You can see the dust on him at this angle, but then you can also see the shine coming through it. I'm sorry, I'm not here to brag about him. I'm just trying to give another perspective, another way to look at this, because I think a lot of people are having this issue, but they don't even know it. So when you look at a horse angry eating, and then you figure if they are angry eating, how many hours a day, and all that anger and all that anxiety and stress and frustration and resentment that is going to affect the total health and your ability to be able to train that horse. Versus, you see how his eyes are half closed? He's almost, maybe I should quiet down a little bit. He's almost like in a zen-like state when he eats. He's, you know, I mean, this is his morning feeding, so so he's a little hungrier than normal. But you see how he's just like nice and calm, and then the way that his neck head goes down, that really encourages the flow of saliva, because the saliva and proper mastication, to where the saliva is able to coat every bit of the food before it gets swallowed, that is the first step to proper digestion. Oh, that was good. You see him turning it. So he's turning the feed pan right now. Right now it's a little wonky, but it's fine. He evens it out. He'll spin it around to where he can get the high parts, and then that'll drop down. He knows how to use these already. He's been using the Porta-Grazer for over 8 years now. And we have two, so that he is able to get a variety of hays. Usually I'll put 80% orchard, 20% alfalfa in this one, and then in this one I'll put teff and timothy and meadow mix or grass mixes, or something like that extra in there, just to give him a good variety of hays. But the feeding style, now this is a Porta-Grazer, and I'm not here to sell you on Porta-Grazers. If there was a better alternative, I'd be all on it. And you know me, I'm all into the DIYs and stuff, but honestly I haven't found anything that can replace these yet. I mean, there's more coming out, so we'll see. But oh, I totally lost my train of thought. Great. What was I saying? Okay, the importance of the feed, and the importance of their attitude. If you watch a horse angry eating for all those hours, and you know, that might lead into behavioral training issues. Like on the trail, your horse is grabbing snacks and you can't control it, and they're being rude about it, or they're not responding well to training. Like a lot of you have seen that I can have him loose on the trail and he just follows me. There's hay everywhere. I mean, there's grasses everywhere, but he'll grab a snack here and there, but only if it's proper time. If I walk away, then he'll come running after me and chase after me and stop eating. That's the same way, like while he's normally eating, he'll stop eating at any time to come to me, because he's never all that hungry. He is always at a sort of equilibrium, and that's how they are meant to be. They don't have a gallbladder, and so they need to be eating 24/7, at night, in the daytime, everything. So a horse that's angry eating, right? I'm watching these horses angry eat, and then I watch their owners come into the picture, and then the owners are struggling with the horse, and then they go, why? And I go, you know, I mean, do we need a better trainer, blah, blah, blah? Do I need a bigger bit, bigger spurs, or bigger whip? And it's like, what about you just change the way you feed? Because even before you step into the picture, that horse is already pissed off. So of course, they're going to bring that into your relationship, right? They might, you know, well, at risk of sounding like I'm anthropomorphizing, I'm just going to stop right there. But you can extrapolate from that data. I mean, if the horse is angry, and they're eating so many hours a day, or starving so many hours a day, then what type of mentality are they bringing to the table when even before you step into the picture, okay? Versus one that has been zen and calm like this, you know, all day long, and then I throw a saddle on him. Oh man, I cannot get my thoughts together today. All right, so let's see. a lot of the trading where, he comes to me and stuff like that, I show that he wants to come to me. And that's the big thing. People are like, how do you even get to that point where he wants to come to you? Well, if he has every need met, his food and everything, he's not hungry, he's not thirsty, blah, 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 then what else is there? There's just me. And then I provide entertainment, enjoyment, enrichment, right? So then the biggest thing in his life is when I step into the pen, because everything else is for granted. He always has hay in there. He's not hungry. Now, then another point is, well, people go, well, look at my horse. My horse is not starving. Okay. Your horse's body condition is good. That's true. But we're talking about a different definition of starving. You know how people, technically, we're not starving until 7 days out. We can survive 7 days without food. So technically, if you miss one meal, you are not starving. But do you feel like you're starving? That's the difference. So technically, a horse isn't starving when you feed them twice a day, but do they feel like they had been starving all day long? Obviously, they do if they are getting food aggressive, if they're attacking the food, if they're pinning their ears at you. If they're pinning their ears at you, they're saying they hate you. So why do they hate you? Figure that out first. I have all these things showing how much Lasair loves me, but it's not something that I can force. It's something that he's giving over to me. So, and that starts with him not pinning his ears at feed time and hating me. Okay, so yeah, it's what the horse feels like. The horse will feel like it's starving if it's without food for most of the day, because they're meant to eat 24/7. Let's see, what else? So training will build upon the first foundation is your attitude and your base demeanor, right? And then you can put your training on that. You can't train if you got a bad attitude. And if you've been angry eating all day, you've got a bad attitude. It's going to make training a lot harder. And a lot of people, they say, well, my horse is gorging and eating too fast, so I want to slow it down. Well, there's two ways to look at it. You can either build upon the problem, or you can cut the problem off at the root and not have a problem at all. Not have a leg for the problem to stand on. If the horse is gorging, why would a horse gorge? Look at the root of the problem. The horse is gorging because it felt like it had been starving all day, and when it finally gets food, it attacks it with a passion. I felt like that before. I've missed several meals, and by the time I got my food, I had a plastic fork, and I bit that I shoveled the food in my mouth, and I cursed the fork because it was too small. I wanted to shove the entire plate into my face. And then when I finally got the food in the fork, it was a plastic fork, in my mouth, I actually bit the whole head of the fork off along with my food, and I had to spit it out again. And I didn't even realize I had done that. I certainly didn't mean to do that. Didn't mean to be such a brute. But that's what the hunger drove me to do. And that's exactly what these guys are doing. And believe me, when I was that hungry, and if someone had come and tried to take my food away, I would have killed him. And if someone had then given me a teeny tiny dessert fork and said, okay, eat off of this, I would have thrown that dessert fork off their face. I'm like, no, give me my big bites. I need to eat. It's a very savage and base feeling, and that's exactly what they're feeling. You know how they actually have studies done on human children and schooling, and they talk about how important it is for human children to be getting proper meals at school. makes sense, right? But a lot of human kids don't even get proper meals. And there are lots of scientific studies saying that this is essential. Child cannot focus. They don't have a good frame of mind. They don't have a good attitude if you are not feeding them properly. Okay, absolutely makes sense. So what about the horse? Same exact thing with the horse. They're not going to respond well to you. They're not going to build a relationship with you if you are not feeding them. And, oh, I'm sorry. We were talking about building on the problem. Okay, so the root of the problem is that base, drive to eat, right? So how do you fix that? From the root of the problem, well, first let's talk about if you build upon the problem. The horse is gorging, scarfing down food, eating too fast, choking, etc. So you build upon that problem. Instead of addressing the root, you build upon it by putting the food in a small hole hay net. A slow feeder. All right, that's going to slow that horse down. Now that horse is even angrier. Okay, so how you cut the root off of the problem is by looking at the actual root of the issue. The horse is hungry. Let it eat. Now, if you let it eat and you let it eat as much as it wants, like they were made to do in nature, then all of that goes away because we only hog the resources that we are deprived of. We're only aggressive and fight for the resource and have a bad attitude about the resources that we don't have. If we have plenty of it, if we have a ton of it, then we will share. We will only take what we need. We're not anxious about it, and we're calm about it if we have as much as we need. So that right there is the root of the issue right there. Okay. So sorry, my brain isn't working today. Okay, so what else? So everything I think is going to start with good gut health. Just doing this is going to make it so that the microflora can now flourish as well. Then, of course, you gotta, everything else I said in husbandry, don't deworm too much, don't do the psyllium too much. Try to do something like mats in the feeding area instead of psyllium all the time. Because psyllium all the time, that's going to disturb the microflora. Everything that you do should be to encourage the best microflora possible in the horse. Antibiotic stress, dewormings, all that stuff is going to disturb the microflora. And when that is disturbed, that's when you get an angry horse, you got a horse that can't digest. If they have teeth issues, they got sharp points in their teeth or teeth missing or an abscess or something like that. All of these issues that disturb eating, that is going to affect the overall health of your horse. And not just physical health, mental health, and training and relationship. So when you look at it that way, are these things worth it, the PortaGrazers? All right. I think that's it. Trying to think what else I had to say. Oh, exercise. Exercise is going to tie into this because I gave the example of the old vintage sewing machines that I'm restoring, and that's the best example I can think of. You get a sewing machine that is all gunked up with old oil and stuff like that because it's been sitting and doing nothing. And if I just pour new oil over that, nothing is going to really change. The only way to change it is to, clean off the gunk, in other words, detox, and then movement. Move the machine, run the machine, and that is exercise. And then put new stuff in. So the new stuff is not going to be utilized as well if they're not getting movement. Do you see what I'm saying? The old stuff needs to get purged out. The body has a whole filtration, detox system built in to get rid of that, but that is all triggered with exercise. So you exercise more, you drink more, you pee more, you eat more, you poop more. That's all more building blocks going in when more comes out, and more comes out when you exercise more. It ups everything, their attitude and all that. So that's all important. His eye is pretty much hidden. Let's see. Well, I want you to eat and let me see your eye. Well, hopefully, I can't really see his face that much, but hopefully you can see how it's working. That tearing motion is what they do when they graze naturally. And then you can see the type of bites that he's getting. It's not too small, so he's not getting frustrated. There was a big learning curve with this, and I covered that in part 3 of my video, of the husbandry part 3 video. There is a transition period that you need to do with it and stuff. There are other alternatives to this, cheaper alternatives, but they all have their pros and cons. The only thing I would say for sure is stay away from metal, because metal definitely will harm their teeth. Now he's cleaning up the leftover grains that he had dropped, and that's why we have the mats, because he will sit there and actually lick the little bits of grain that's left over there. Stay away from the metal. If you're going to do hay nets, use the large hole hay nets, but each of them are going to have their problems. I started PortaGrazer, using the PortaGrazer about 8 years ago. And so they had this green one. That was their original. And then this is their XL one. If you look at it, it's very, very similar. It's hard to even tell the difference. I only filled these up about halfway today, so it's already getting low. And then they have a corner grazer. The corner grazer I don't recommend. I bought that one as well when it came out, but we had an issue with it where it was just wasting too much hay. Usually at the end of all of this, he'll have a bit of hay this much. That's the fine grind stuff, and the dust and the dirt and the rocks and the debris and gunk and whatever. That sits at the bottom there, and that's great. I love that it filters all that out and lets it sift to the bottom so that I can dump it out. But what I found with the corner grazer is that I was getting about a quarter to a third of this grazer was gunk, and that was because the feed pan of the XL is I think 1.6 pounds and the corner grazer is much larger. Plus, a lot of people were having issues where it's getting broken like that. And that's mostly because Lasair is a brute and he was trying to go through the holes instead of spinning it. It took him a while to learn that he could just spin it instead, and then he was spinning instead of trying to go through it. But you see him spinning. But the corner grazer's pan is 5.2 pounds. That's a big difference. 5.2 pounds versus 1.6 pounds, around there. It makes a difference because they push this with their lips, and they push, so several, all the time you're shoving it around. And when it's 5.2 pounds, that's the base weight of it sitting on there, then turning, and plus him pushing down on it. I think it basically turned into a grinder. So then it was grinding the hay instead of it was grinding it more. So one third of this hay that I put in there was wasted. Now that might not seem too much, but if you figure, if say you spend $300 a month on hay, and 1/3 of that's $100 a month out the toilet, just because of the design of that grazer. So for me, doing the math, I had to return it. That was not going to work for me. But You know, other horses might not have that issue. I spoke to them about it. They said that nobody else has that issue. Lasair is weird, so, you know, maybe it's just him. But from my understanding of what the problem is, yeah, it just wasn't going to work for us. I'm trying to let you see him spin it and stuff like that too. So he's not quite doing the Zen thing like he normally does. Probably because I'm over here talking really loud and looking at him. But I mean, there's times when he looks like he's just about falling asleep. His eyes are just so calm. And I really want you guys to see that angry, the video of the angry feeding, because so many people see that and they think that that's funny, that the horse is angry like that. Oh, haha, she's taking it out on her feed bag, you know, oh, haha, what a brat, or, you know, something like that. And I take it seriously. I don't see it as being a funny thing at all or acceptable. I want it to where the horse is calm about it, because then I can do this. Lasair. Good boy. You see that? All of a sudden his eyes perked up and he immediately came to me. He immediately stopped eating, and all I had to do was say his name, you know? That's what I want. He's going to leave his food and come to me because, you know, he knows that that's always there. He knows that, you know, and I am that makes it makes it open up a spot for me to be the most intriguing part of his life, not the food. Because otherwise, if your horse is starving, I'm sorry, but if I'm starving, all I can think of is food. There's no way I'm going to be paying attention to lessons or school or another person or anything. You ever got hangry before? Yeah, if you're hangry, I mean, the only cure for that is food. And of course, the food aggression and stuff, that could, there's a whole psychological thing that gets built upon, and that's why they end up having vices and they crib and stuff like that. But it's also the restriction in movement a lot of the times, and the boredom and all that. So all of that is tied in together. But, you know, I'm just saying a huge part of the puzzle is the eating. All right, so I think I've talked enough now. If there are any questions, go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Bye, guys.